Hey guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wing Gaming. Some of you know me on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of Angels with Scaly Wings. So y'all, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm Chan, you are up and let's go. Alright. Don't be silly. You sound like an old couple. Couple? Us? Not really. We've known each other for a long time though, if that counts. I think it does. By the way, Ipsum, you're not from here, right? What is that supposed to mean? Well, you look nothing like any other dragon I've ever seen here so far. I suppose that's true for Lorem as well. You're both pretty small. But you, Ipsum, also have hair. That's certainly new. It's not as unusual as you might think, but you're right. There aren't many of us in these parts. Imagine being smaller and the rest of the population would come with its own challenges. It's not that big of a deal. If something is unreachable for me, I can fly. This apartment is actually intended to house one dragon of a bigger size. That not only makes it fairly cheap, but it's also big enough for both of us. There's one thing I've been wondering. How do you even sit in one of those chairs? Wouldn't the backrest just cause problems with your tails? I see what you mean. For me, it's never been a problem, because most chairs are bigger than I am. It's just a question of getting into the right position. However, this might be different from those of us who mostly walk on four legs, but they usually don't use chairs like these at all. I've seen a few try, though. I suppose they want to imitate humans this way. Even if they can't stand or walk like a human, they can try to sit like one. With varying results. Some I've seen look really funny, trying to fit in chairs they are too big for, or sitting in odd ways that clearly don't work with their anatomy. I see. Lorem, you asked me about breath weapons last time, but I don't think you ever told me if you had one. Probably because it isn't worth mentioning. It may only be a very small flame, but it can get very hot. What about you, Ipsum? Yes, Ipsum, what about you? My breath weapon is elocution, since words are more powerful than anything else. Okay. Alright, I'm done with this one. You can turn around. Sure. Let's make one more, maybe something dynamic. How dynamic are we talking about? Something that isn't static like the reference models I just did. You can strike a pose, something that's just you. Alright. What kind of pose should I go for? Alright, how about this? Works for me. By the way, did you get the groceries when you came home from work? Yes, just as usual. Are you too sure you're not in a relationship? I certainly am. Actually, Ipsum is deeply in love with his home laboratory. Oh, really? I'm not even going to deny that. When I'm not working on something at the office, I do so here. What are you currently working on? I've been looking into the physics of teleportation. You're talking about the portal, right? Well, I don't have permission to even approach the portal, so I have to resort to a theoretical discussion on its mechanics and make do with what I can pull off in my home laboratory. Maybe I could tell you a few things. That won't be necessary. I already have read all the available test reports. Okay. Are you aware that using the portal could be incredibly dangerous? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Then you don't have a complete understanding of what the portal actually does and what it means for our world at large. In order for a portal to function, a natural wormhole is required. It is trapped and becomes a portal's entry. The portal manipulates the wormhole's exit. This way, something can be sent whichever destination is chosen. Now, there is a theory about the purpose of the natural wormholes in the universe. It states that they act as the support pillars of the space-time continuum. How so? How should I explain this? I think the video game analogy worked pretty well. Sure, in a video game, what happens to when you meet the edge of the map? You hit a wall? That happens in some games, but in others, you reappear on the opposite side. Right. How does this happen? If our world was a perfect sphere, someone could just keep flying in the same direction, and eventually they would end up at their starting point again. Sure. This is just a result of physics. In the abstraction of video game, however, it doesn't work like that. They don't try to replicate a spherical world, but use a 2D plane instead. This is getting confusing. Imagine a piece of paper with a world map printed on it. Second, y'all. It is coffee time. Right. Well, it shows the entirety of the world. It's just a simple, flat piece of paper rather than a sphere, right? Sure. Let us assume that in a game, our world map looks like that. Now, what happens when we approach the edge and walk over it as though we are teleported to the opposite side? Okay. This doesn't actually make the game world a sphere, but rather a torus. A torus? You know, like a donut. If that's the comparison you want to make. Okay. Now, things are going to get really complicated. Are you familiar with the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics? Let's say I'm not. It states that every single time a choice is made by any actor that possesses free will, the universe splits off into different branches. This means that for every choice you have made, there exists a branch of the universe where you have made a different decision. I see. Now, we can't communicate with these other branches in any way. You don't know what would happen if you had made a different decision just this morning. You could make an educated guess, but the only person who truly knows what would happen in that alternate you is that alternate you who has made that decision and is living its consequences. That is, unless we could communicate with those other branches. However, there is a barrier that prevents us from doing that. This barrier is made up of wormholes. How does that work? It is very similar to the torus world model that is used in games. As we approach the edge of our world, the barrier causes us to end up on the other side instead. Does this mean we get teleported to the other side like in video games? Not necessarily. It would be just as correct to assume that our universe is shaped like a torus. So which is it then? Do we get teleported or not? That depends on how you look at the wormhole's function. Imagine the sheet of paper is the entirety of our world. He took a sheet of paper from Lorm's stack and showed it to me, marking a spot near the edge with a pin. And this is where you live. Unfortunately, your workplace is here, on the other side. He drew an X close to the right edge of the paper. If the world was flat, this would be very unfortunate. However, if the world was a torus, the left and right edges would be connected. You could take the shorter route to work by going over the edge. Now, let's say that this is only possible because wormholes connect these two edges together. If you happen to be right at the very edge and look beyond, everything would look perfectly fine for you. Given that these wormholes stay in their place, you would never know that the world is actually flat and that you can only travel to the other side because the wormholes connect the edges. You would think that the world is a torus, right? However, what if the wormholes don't actually bring you to the other side by teleporting you, but instead just bend the paper into the torus shape and hold the edges together? If these wormholes failed or were displaced, the paper would unfold, throwing the world into disarray. That's what the wormholes and the barrier actually do. They're what hold everything together. So they're really more like glue. If it wasn't for them, the overall construct would collapse in on itself. What construct? The entirety of space-time. Now, if these theories are true, that would mean using a portal damages the barrier. Each time the portal is activated, the wormhole used for the teleportation is displaced, leaving a small gap where it used to be. Do this too often, and the overall system will destabilize eventually. Alright, maybe you shouldn't talk about your theories about how the world is going to end. Nothing is going to happen because the portal was used a few times. I just hope humanity is aware of its implications. Maybe we can elaborate. I certainly hope so. Your researchers seem to know what they're doing. I just wish I could be part of it. With everything that's going on, the future looks incredibly exciting. What do you think is going to happen, Ipsum? Now you'll get him started. Don't say I didn't warn you. The knowledge contained within your PDAs could propel innovation forward by unseen lengths. Meaning a lot more experiments for you to do. Which would be terribly exciting. Personally, I'm more interested in the social implications. What do you mean? I don't expect there to just be a back and forth of ambassadors forever. Are you talking about colonies? I bet Lorem would jump at the opportunity to live in the human world. I'm not sure if that would be a good idea. Why not? Obviously, such an endeavor would need a lot of preparation. We would need to learn about their culture and adjust appropriately. I expect we'd send an ambassador over there long before that will happen, though. We hardly know anything about their world. Everything's still up in the air as far as diplomatic relations go. We have no idea what the situation could be like in a week. Second, y'all. It is coffee time. Oh yeah, that's the stuff, baby. Yes, and it's also incredibly exciting! Don't get too excited, though, or else you're going to ruin your drawing. It's almost done, anyway. Here, what do you think? Lorem leaned over, holding up the paper to Ipsum. Ipsum looked at the paper closely, his gaze shifting back and forth between me and the paper several times. After a few seconds, he seemed to be finished with his evaluation. As a scientist, my professional opinion is that this part looks a little long. He pointed a sharp claw at the part of the paper Lorm was holding. Are you sure? Let me see. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't have said it. I think you're right. That I am. Lorm reached for his eraser, purging a few lines from the paper before he switched to his pen again. And it's done. See, what would you ever do without me? I don't think I'd hear as many explosions in the middle of the night. You were happy about it when you forgot to set your alarm that one time. Huh. Suddenly, the sound of an alarm resounded throughout the room. Oh, my experiment is done. Heh. And there he goes. Charming fellow, isn't he? Sounds fun. Yeah. Heh. He certainly keeps things interesting around here, and he's a good art critic. I can imagine. Anyway, looks like we're done here. Phew! Feels good being able to move again. Would you like to stay for dinner? It'd be the least I can do to compensate for your lost afternoon. Let me see. What time is it? It's getting late, and I probably shouldn't stay out this long. Looks like I'll have to decline for now. I see. Well, I gotta do something for you, at least. Don't worry about it. Maybe some other time. If you say so. Thanks for doing this, at any rate. It's been a huge help. Yeah, I know. Don't worry about it. Really. Alright. I should really get going now. Sure, take care. Uh-oh. Conflict. Chapter 5. Oh, no! No! Oh, if that's who I think it is. After a night of turbulent dreams, my consciousness returned to the shores of the waking world. Today's the day of the big fireworks. Who shall I bring? We're bringing Remy. Remy is our romantic choice. Ding dong. That must be him. FBI, open up! Are you ready to see the fireworks? My body is ready. Alright, let's go! After a few minutes of walking, we arrived at a rather empty-looking area near the edge of town. Looks deserted to me. I thought everyone was watching the fireworks. They are, but they're doing it somewhere else. I don't really like the crowds, and I think you would appreciate me leading you here if you knew what they were like. Better be safe than sorry, at any rate. Second, y'all. Coffee time. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My mate makes some good coffee. That's what I'm thinking. This reminds me a bit of the night I arrived here. Everything was dark and empty, and it was just us walking through the landscape. Yeah, you're right. Oh, I think it's starting now. Watch. We were quiet as we waited in the stillness of the night enveloped us. Soon I heard the sound of the first rocket making its way into the night sky, after which it exploded in a pattern of colors. More rockets followed, their thunderous noise echoing throughout the land. Ooh, pretty. Oh yeah, but something bad's gonna happen, I just know it. Suddenly, a terrible realization hit me. Considering how public an event this was, and how I was told multiple times that everyone would be watching the fireworks, now would be the best time for Reza to do anything he planned to do. Not only was the village basically deserted, but the sounds of the fireworks would also overshadow any gunshots, giving him as much security as he would ever have. As the portal had been repaired by the mysterious person I met, now was the perfect time for Reza to make his getaway, and I was the only one who knew. Remy, I think we need to go. Now. What's wrong, Keegan? I know where Reza is. We need to stop him. Should we call the police or something? Yeah. We don't have time. I'm not sure if I could fight him. You're right. If you're there, he probably won't hesitate to shoot. Oh, maybe you can hold him off, and I'll try to get some help. Alright, let's do that. Go! I started running as Remy's voice called out to me. Where is he? Where should I go? The portal. He'll be there. I arrived at the portal just a few minutes later. I couldn't help but be glad that it was still turned off and didn't appear to have been used recently, but it meant Reza was still here, somewhere. I looked around, thinking about where he could be or if it was worth waiting for him here when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Hesitating, I drew nearer. Oh no. Oh no, not Sebastian! I checked Sebastian for any signs of life and found nothing. However, his body was still warm. Reza was here very recently, but he hadn't used a portal just yet. Why? Sebastian's guard post was not just for the portal itself, but also the surrounding area. Since Reza was already here, he probably had some unfinished business very close by. The underground building. The administrator had told me all about the prowess of the generators within. It probably hadn't been hard for Reza to guess the same, or to try stealing them from a place he knew would be even more deserted than the rest of the village was right now. He also didn't have far to go from the portal, all things considered. All things considered, it was the only option that made sense to me. I could have waited for Reza here, but in the end I decided it would be better to meet him underground. If there was going to be a confrontation, I was sure I would have the advantage in a more crowded space. Even in the darkness, it was easy for me to spot the site where they had unearthed the building's entry, as it was in a roped-off area that had been seen from far, that I had seen from afar before. When I entered the building, I was met by a long, illuminated hallway that was lined with doors on both sides. Since the lights were already on, Reza had to be very close. I wasn't surprised at the building still having electricity, since its generators were also powering the portal. Alright, y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and... Oh, shit, okay. Well, okay, what a place to pause it, then. Good timing, Alarm 10. Anyway, y'all, thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, leave a super thanks, or a tip if you can, it always helps. Until the next video, I love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!